Today I want to talk action cameras. I don't normally go over topics like this, but I feel it's necessary. I don't see this occurring as much online, but I go with GoPro, or at least have for many, many years now. Finally, I've come across the point where GoPro's not really cutting the mustard these days, so like many others, I made the switch to DJI. However, I've only had this for a couple of days, and I'm already considering the fact that I might have made a mistake. So before we get into some of the current issues that I'm facing right now, let's go into a little bit of at least my history with these little GoPros here. My first GoPro is a Hero 3. At the time I was using it as a helmet camera as its intended use to film myself doing track days. I had gotten into motocross at the time, so what I was doing was uploading videos of a lap or two of me learning to ride motocross at various tracks around my neighborhood. And that camera was perfectly fine. It was a little bit lower resolution obviously, but that was just a product of the time. I think the highest resolution that I had was something like 1080p at 60 frames a second, something like that, but it worked fine for what it was. And the other thing was that it was not image stabilized. So anytime I moved my head really fast back and forth, it was a little jarring. Then GoPro rolled out some kind of rebate program. I don't know if they still do this or not. You could give them your old GoPro, whether it was working or not, any generation, and you would get a $100 rebate towards a brand new one. So I took them up on that offer at the time. I gave them my old GoPro Hero 3, and in return, purchased this, the GoPro Hero 7 Black. And I was really excited for getting this for a number of reasons. Number one is, of course, the resolution has been upped. Now it's up to 4K, and 4K was like a big thing at the time. And of course, this camera came with Hypersmooth. I was really excited to see that, and I figured that would make something like a track video a lot more appealing, and motovlogging in general really cool to look at. But then with the evolution of this channel, I actually found myself speaking more as I'm riding my bike rather than just putting it on there and hitting record and doing a few laps on the track. And I had an audio set up previously with my GoPro Hero 3 that was really simple. It was just a mini USB 2 microphone, and it worked just fine. You just plugged it into the charging port and you were good. This generation, however, GoPro decided to make that a proprietary issue. You have to get theirs because the audio is locked. It was a little annoying that I had to shove out 50 bucks for this little adapter, which should only cost a few dollars, but you know, beyond that, it's perfectly fine. Yes, I got this, and I got this case to hold it. Everything was hunky-dory. And it was pretty good for the last few years. I've been putting out videos since about 2021 with this setup, and it's been perfectly fine. I've been using this GoPro actually as my main camera for a lot of those years, which takes us all the way up to today. And I was most recently going to be using this camera to film my first impressions video on the Mototech electric dirt bike. However, before that, I started to notice that on occasion when I was using this, sometimes the video would actually cut out and I wouldn't have a video feed, I would just have audio. It would just freeze itself over time. This didn't happen all the time, but just occasionally. But I was actually able to get away with it for a little bit by just doing like 1 to 2 minute sized clips, no more. And I got away with that for quite a while. Actually, the anti-vortex shootout, it was happening that entire time. So every single clip that you saw in that video is pretty much the entirety of that clip. I would hit record, say whatever I wanted to say, and turn it off almost immediately. But I knew that was not very sustainable. And when it came to this most recent Mototech first impressions video, that's when I started to notice that every single time I would hit record on this, it would freeze, and not just within a minute or two. This was within seconds. All right, I know we took a look at this in the unboxing and did a little bit around the block, but this is going to be my official ride, full ride, and get to know this thing a little bit better, see how it feels. I mean, as you saw there, the first clip, I didn't even make it out of my own driveway before the thing froze. It was getting ridiculous. And the most annoying part is I wouldn't know until after I finished filming that clip. You would hit record and everything would be perfectly fine. It's then when you hit it again, you usually get those 3 beeps to confirm that it stopped recording, but then you would hit this and then nothing happens. At this point, I can't use this camera anymore. It's toast. So when I was looking for a new camera, I was for a moment considering getting just the latest generation of GoPro, or at least a closer generation, but a lot of people online are complaining about the GoPros and saying that the 8, 9, 10, 11s have major issues with overheating and they're not very reliable, and I did start to see some of that with this, so I figured, all right, I'll get off of the GoPro. I'm not beholden to the GoPro system. I don't use anything else really from GoPro besides their mic adapter, so if anything, that would be great. I can get away from all that, and so I decided to go with DJI. I am a big sucker for always buying the previous generation when the new generation comes out because you can get it at a pretty hefty discount, even brand new, and that was the case with DJI. A few months ago, they released their Action 4, and I saw a bunch of videos about that, including motovloggers. Everyone was talking about it, so naturally the Action 3 has been reduced in price. So this was a brand new system from DJI, and I got it for 199 bucks. Not a bad deal. I didn't really have to do that much to change my helmet setup from GoPro to DJI. Literally all I had to do was just unplug the GoPro mic, undo that, hook up the new adapter for the DJI, snap that in, and plug in the mic. It was that simple. So with the new DJI setup, I decided to do my Mototech first impressions yet again, which would actually make it the second impression. But let's not get into semantics. In any case, I filmed it. It was perfectly fine. It recorded everything that I wanted it to record, never froze. Brought it back, put it into the computer, saw the footage. It looked fantastic, but that's when I started to notice the really big issue.
It's just a fun little toy for what it is. It's got a short wheelbase.
I've seen what people have done to bikes like these, and sky's the limit, really. That audio was 100% just as it is when you just plug it in. No gain control, nothing like that. And I figured that that would be okay, and I mean, maybe I had to do some adjustments, but that audio was absolutely unusable. I can't use any of the footage that I just shot. But this does have gain control, so I'm hoping that that fixes it. So we're gonna actually go into the settings here and turn that down all the way down to minus 12 decibels. All right, so this is the test of a negative 12 gain. See if that does anything.
I'm gonna flip my visor down. Let's test it now. Test, test. Talking on the Mototech. Riding around the neighborhood. Is it clipping? Is it popping? Time will tell.
Even with the gain control that it has with minus 12 decibels, you'd think that would be within some sort of reasonable spec in which it's not popping and clipping constantly. And not to mention the fact that this was done on an electric bike, so there's no engine noise or anything like that. On top of that, I would be incredibly surprised to see if this did anything whatsoever if I was on, say, the Honda Grom, which is my loudest bike. And just for reference, this is the Motovlog setup. Everything minus the camera is exactly the same that I would have with the GoPro. In fact, it's even using the old GoPro chin mount that's attached to the helmet. I have the mic wired up in a bundle up top, and it's routed all the way through the helmet and actually comes out here on the side of my cheek rather than the front, so I'm not getting like spitting and popping from my mouth. And I even went as far as to duct tape up the vents in the front so that way there's no airflow going through this along the mic in any sort of way, so I'm not getting any wind noise. And all of this worked fine with the GoPro. I never had to adjust anything in post. I didn't have to put anything additional. Even though it doesn't even have gain controls in the camera, it just worked.
One eternity later.
I went through every single lav mic that I have and trying to get like the best scenario with the best equipment and the best placement of everything. And I think I have the cleanest as it comes out of the box that I can actually make this as of right now. I've gone to the white helmet because the white helmet has a Purple Panda lav, and I found the Purple Panda actually works a little bit better than whatever brand I had in the red helmet. I had the mic right here with a big old dead cat, and I thought that was going to be sufficient enough, but that is not the case. So I found that it's a little cleaner if I actually hide it underneath the cheek pad. So I took it right here and literally just snapped it in between the helmet and the cheek pad to give me as much of buffering as I possibly could with using the thickness of the cheek pad right here. So let's give this a final test.
Testing yet again in the cheek pad, minus 12 decibels still. Visor down. Let's see if it's clipping or popping this time. I really hope it's not.
Okay. It did something. It didn't do nothing. It's better, but now it's getting to the point where almost any volume that it's picking up, whether it's my voice, the engine noise, the road, the wind, it's getting all muffled together, and so now it sounds like I'm recording underwater. However, I have one more solution that I want to try, and it is this. This is an inline volume control with the TRS. So what this does is actually changes the gain before it gets from the microphone to the camera. So I'm hoping that I can adjust this and see what my desired level is and see if that's any better. Getting some wind coming in to the helmet, but speaking at my normal speaking volume. Now I'm going to put my visor down. Visor is down. And still talking, moving my helmet around, seeing if it's clipping or popping. This is 66% on the volume control with the cheek pad right next to me and a full dead cat. So we're going to see if this does anything. Visor up, 30% on the volume control inline, speaking at my normal volume. I'm going to look left, I'm going to look right, see if the wind is doing anything at all, if it's clipping or popping. Now the visor is down, so we're testing it with the visor down. If there's any clipping or popping, 33% volume in line. Now see, that's more like it. I really liked that first one. I think I'm going with the 1/3 reduction, so 66% volume, which I have right now. But now we're out testing the noise, engine noise, to see that's not blowing out with the loudest of my bikes, the Honda Grom. And now we're on the fastest bike of the fleet to test speed and see whether or not wind noise is a factor anymore. Well, that's much more like it. So at the beginning of this, I was questioning whether or not I made the right decision and if I should have gone with a more up-to-date GoPro. But I am starting to see the qualities of DJI beyond this horrendous audio issue. It does have amazing resolution. The battery is super robust. I've only had to charge this thing like once. Stabilization is good too. It's just that the audio is just not to my liking. That said though, I'm really glad that I was able to make it work with an inline piece. It is annoying that I do have to add one more thing, because the more things that you put between the microphone and the camera, the more chance there is for it to go wrong. So I guess at this point I just have to hope that nothing bad happens and there's no bad connections or anything like that. But I guess we'll figure that out real quickly, because if that's the case, then there's no more video footage.